Good evening. Tonight I'm going to tell you a story about Ethel. Ethel was a young lady in her mid-30s who loved to make Victoria sponge cake. Now this Victoria sponge cake she'd been making since she was a little girl, and when she was a little girl her mum taught her how to make this Victoria sponge cake. She would often, be with her mum on a Saturday afternoon and they would get all the ingredients out and measure them and mix them and put them all together, and Ethel has the fondest memories of making this cake with her mum and how good it used to taste. But over the years the sponge cake started to evolve a little bit. Ethel spent a little bit less time in making it. She felt a little bit less passionate about making it. So the feedback started to change. When she would present the cake, people's eyes wouldn't quite light up the same way they did when she was younger. There would be sometimes little quips about, oh, it's a bit dry this time, isn't it? Should we tell her? But everybody was a bit too scared to tell Ethel about the cake because Ethel was her desire and want to provide a good cake was so strong that everybody took what they were given and just didn't tell her, let her carry on. So this Victoria sponge cake that Ethel would provide wasn't the best in the world, wasn't the worst in the world, and she really, really wanted to provide something good. And over the years, occasionally she would tweak something a little bit, or she would experiment a tiny little bit, but never too much. She would never take anybody's advice on her cake, lo and behold. She would never replace the whole recipe. Oh gosh, no. She knew her recipe and she knew that it worked. She knew it wasn't quite right, but she was happy enough that it was hers, okay? So this carried on for many, many years. And then one day, Ethel went on holiday to Cornwall. And on holiday in Cornwall, she went to Gladys's tea room. And in Gladys's tea room, she saw a Victoria sponge cake and thought, it looks so good, I'm going to try it. So she took this Victoria sponge cake, she took a mouthful, and she went, this tastes so good. And she was blown away by this Victoria sponge cake. It was light, it was fluffy, it was moist, there was so much cream and jam. It was absolutely everything that she wanted in her cake. She was like, oh my gosh, I have to have this cake. So she politely went up to the counter and said to Gladys, I've been making a Victoria sponge cake for so many years, and I so desperately want to provide the best cake that I can for my friends and family. I want to make them happy, make them proud, make me proud of what I'm producing. Would you teach me? Would you help me improve my recipe so that I can make it like yours? And Gladys, being a lovely little old lady, said, you know what, Ethel, I'll help you. Come back tomorrow and we'll start a plan, but you need to come back every week for 6 weeks because, there's a few different things we're going to have to address, and then we're going to have to test them and experiment with them to make sure that they work for you. Okay, Ethel said. So off she went home to bed, had a quick night's sleep, came back the next day very keen to work on this recipe with Gladys. So day one, Gladys says to Ethel, now tell me, what do you like in a Victoria sponge cake? What does it have to look like to you, taste like to you? How spongy does it need to be? How thick should the cream be? What type of jam? And Gladys said, Ethel said, I really love your cake, but actually, yeah, I would probably have raspberry jam instead of strawberry. I would probably have an extra ½ inch of cream because I like a bit of cream. And I would probably have the cake about a centimetre deeper. Okay, says Gladys. Now we know what you're looking for. Let's have a look at your ingredients list. So Ethel shows Gladys the ingredients list, and Gladys says, oh no, Ethel. A lot of these ingredients are very outdated. There's much more modern, efficient products on the market that will give you a much better result in your cake. Ethel said, but this is the way I've always done it. It works. I know how it works. And Gladys said, this is the cake you want. You're going to have to change some ingredients if you want that cake. Oh, Ethel said, oh, if I must, okay, I'll replace those ingredients. Come on, let's keep going. So then the next week, Ethel comes back and Gladys says, let's have a look at your tools. So out comes all of Ethel's tools. And she's got a mixing bowl from the ancient ages, which was her Nana Joe's. And she's got her whisk, which is a bit rusty around the edges. And she's got her measuring scoops, which are broken and battered and resized from being melted in the oven. And Gladys says, oh, Ethel, how you've managed to do this to this point, I don't even know. Right, out with this, out with this. And Ethel's going, no, I don't want to let it go. And Gladys was there with her hands on Ethel's shoulders to say, darling, if you want good cake, you've got to make sacrifice. You've got to let go of these things that don't work for you anymore. They did once and they brought you joy once, but now They don't bring you the joy that you want because they're outdated. They're done. Let's get rid of those. So out go the tools. Oh, Ethel shed a few tears, but actually she was pleased. She was looking at Gladys's tools and going, oh, aren't they amazing? Oh, look at this bowl. Look at these mixing spoons. I could get used to this. Then next week Gladys says, right, okay, Ethel, let's have a look at your method. You know, your oven temperature, your shelf, your tin, you know, how long you're putting it in there for. Ethel tells Gladys. Gladys again says, oh, darling, how you managed to get a rise at all is beyond me. This won't do. Okay, this is what you need to be thinking of. This is the recipe and the formula for working out. If you want X amount of rise, you need this amount of minutes on this shelf. Right, Ethel says, okay, very good. So at this point, Ethel's got up-to-date ingredients, she's got up-to-date tools, and she's got up-to-date techniques and methods on how to put this cake together. So she starts practicing. And for a couple more weeks, she goes back to see Gladys and say, right, this is what I'm doing. This is how my cake is coming out. This is everything that I'm using. I'm starting to get real results. It's starting to look amazing. So at the end of their time together, Ethel makes a cake for Gladys and says, look, what do you reckon? And Gladys says, I would serve that in my shop. I think that's brilliant. Are you pleased with it? Ethel says, it's the best cake ever. I'm so excited to go home and share it with my friends and family. So that's what she does. Gets in her car, toot, toot, drives all the way back home again, makes up a cake, takes it to her next family party, and her family are in rapture. They're so excited. Oh, this is the best cake ever, Ethel. This is so amazing. It made them all so happy, and it filled Ethel's heart with absolute happiness that not only had it made everybody else happy, but she was also supremely happy. Everybody was happy with Ethel's new cake because she was willing to ditch all of her old methods and processes and tools because they didn't suit her anymore. What she had learned many moons ago and what people had told her was the right thing to do and the only way to do it, she had chosen to pitch and invite in a whole new way of cake making. That's today's story. Tune in tomorrow for the next episode or adventure or whatever it is that pops up for me to help you understand what mindset coaching is.